Myself, Animesh. I'm currently working as a DevRel at a Kepler. I'm also the Gold MLSA from Noida region, as well as the Postman student leader of my community. So today we'll be discussing about what is an API, how its testing is done, why do we need testing, where does the Kepler comes in, and at the end we have a giveaway plan for you all folks. So I would suggest to take some screenshots in between of the session so you can be eligible for those giveaways. And in between, if you have any question, any doubt, you can either unmute yourself or you can write in the chat box. Cool. Awesome then. Let's get started. So first of all, let's understand like what is an API. In a simpler term, we can just say it is a midway of which helps in a connection between or a communication between your database and your application. To understand it in a simpler term, let's take an example of a restaurant API. So for example, you visit your favorite restaurants, right? So when you go, consider yourself as developers or consumers. A waiter comes in, gives you a menu catalog. You choose your favorite dishes with mocktails, some food items, and tell the waiter to bring those. Waiter takes your response, your order to the kitchen, tells the chef, okay, this is the things that you need to deliver. And if the ingredients are available for the dish, chef sends your dish back with all the orders that you have made. And if there is not, he tells the waiter to go back to you and ask him to if you can change the order or the this is not available currently, please order something again. So that's how an API works. You make an request and you get a response. No matter what the response is, it could be either positive, it could be either negative format. For example, the request not found, internal server error, bad request, etc. And if it's successful, you get a successful request. So that is how an API works. It is a simple mode of communication between your database and your application. Hope this part is clear.
Yes, it is clear.
Awesome. So now moving to what is unit testing and why we need it. So when we are making an API or when we are using an API, we see that we have to make different kinds of requests: post request, get request, put request, delete, update. There are many methods that we use. Now, what happens is if we build a scenario case where our application is not working. To mock those, to check those, we write unit test cases. If I want a certain kind of error to mock and I want to see how my application is working, so we'll isolate that specific part. For example, if we are using right now meet.google.com/the code, right? If code is invalid, the Google shows you that the code is invalid. Please try again later or create a new meeting and then diverts you back. If I want to mock those before actually launching it, I'll write the test cases. Those test cases are written using different frameworks depending upon in which our application has been written. So for example, if it's a Node.js, we'll use either Kokomo.js, Mocha, etc. If it's Go, we'll use Go test, Go, etc., Mockito, Kinko. If it's Python, we use PyTest, unit test, and etc. So this is how the frameworking is basically decided on the basis of the language that we are using. This part is very critical because if something fails and it has been neglected, then the next step of your code is about to go into deployment. There are multiple users that are going to use it. For example, recently many have faced the Twitter outbreak, right? The OTP or the two-factor authentication was not able to, the users of specific India, Russia, South America, I think, and were not able to get the codes on their phone. So everyone was logged out of their accounts. So those things, it's a recent bug. You can check on the net to explore what was it. So those things happen when the code is pushed directly or without testing it. To solve those and such thing does not happen in the future, we run all kind of automation testing and unit testing. This type of testing is basically known as functional testing, where we check our functionality of the application. And it's a bit long, but uh, if you have any doubt, you can go ahead and ask.
Like I have heard about like automating this unit test. Like in DevOps, do they do that?
Yeah, in DevOps, we do that. We build our workflow, but even to build those workflow, first we need some kind of data. But once we have a data, we can actually build our automation testing. Uh, it's not just unit testing part only. There is security testing, life cycle testing, and much more. So right till now, we can before the deploy part, we could actually integrate our security tests in our workflows in DevOps. So GitHub Actions is a primary thing. If you are using it frequently, sometimes dependable bot gives you an alert that this package is at the higher risk and such and such and such and so. So those are basically a kind of, you can say, a security test. It is being constantly run upon your application to check if you have any dependencies that are outdated or are vulnerable. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, security testing, right?
Yeah.
Also, one more question. Like, I've seen many roles about testers. So, does testing roles only specifically do unit testing, or they do something?
It involves a lot of part, just not the unit testing part.
Or
As I mentioned, the
yeah, security.
security testing and all.
Yeah.
So it is a complete workflow. Generally, unit testing was done by QA testers or QA engineers, quality assurance engineers. But right now, the developers prefer it to do themselves, because in again there is a lot of code to be written and a lot of bugs to be solved. So developers prefer nowadays, even especially after the lockdown period.
Okay. So, like nowadays, developers itself do all the things.
Yeah, majority unit testing part is done by those, but other testing such as functionality testings and security testings and much more there are still folks available for those quality assurance engineers. We can say the security testers, software testers, and such more.
Yeah, and also like in LinkedIn, I only see posts about software engineering roles. Like nobody is hyped about this testing roles. Like, can you like say why?
So it's a bit of a like the issue is the same, cause majority of the times and many companies prefer that their developers only do the testing, cause it's a cost cutting for the companies as well. And the complete testing parts require a lot of knowledge of the frameworks, especially, for example, if your company is working on a tech stack that is Golang, right? Then you should have a complete understanding or at least intermediate understanding of the frameworks that are associated with it. For example, Kinko, Mojito, for mockings, data, for Go test cases, writing, such frameworks are required. So if you are
Mm.
doing those, then you eventually, then why not go into the development part? So that's how the thinking is working and evolving after the, especially the lockdown period.
Okay, got it. And one more final question.
Mhm.
Like, are there like the pay? Is it less for testers?
That's not specific. It depends on the work and roles and responsibility. So as the company is different, their roles and responsibility for each role are different, and depending upon that role and responsibilities, you get your pay. In some companies, testing or unit quality assurance engineers may get a less pay compared to the software developer, but it could be different in another company. For example, if it's not a CNCF or CNCF companies, or the companies that are working in the CI/CD pipeline, CI/CD tools, the landscape part, there this quality assurance engineer pay could be less, because that much is not required for them. They just have to test the basic security and the functionalities and such of the product. But in other scenarios, the CNCF landscape companies or projects, the most important part becomes the automation and such. So they have a bit higher pay compared to the software engineers.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, got it.
Hello, I have some questions.
Yeah,
So I was asking that how is functional stress testing done? Like individual components is being written here. So I am interested to know how the functional stress testing is done for, like, if we give some output, like which is not means which is not correct,
mhm,
right? Then the how the function will behave, that will also affect the quality of the output of the whole software.
yeah,
So how is the particular functional testing done, and how is the quality of the code? Like, why does people say that quality of code matters in the software? Like in internship which I did, they said that quality of code matters, but I never seen the application of it. Like, is it because of unit testing that while you test it with certain outputs, then the bug detection will be easier?
yeah. That's the one case. So what happens is when we are doing the functional stress testing, or you can suggest the functional testing part, that time quality code matters because as you even said as well, when we are mocking the errors or the responses, right? If it's not in the accordance, for example, you have mocked some bad response or invalid response, but the code is not showcasing that, then you have to go back and check where the error is coming or where there is an issue. You have to diagnosis the issue. If the code quality is good, it is easier to debug it and solve the issue. But if it's bad, then the finding that bug, solving it, and then redoing thing would require a much more time. So that's why it's preferred to that's why it's always preferred to have a quality code for the unit test cases part, as well as it will help both uh, the developers and the testers who are working simultaneously, and the product managers as well, so that it is easier to communicate. In general, product managers and developers work sometimes very closely if they are regarding the product sales, product launch, updates, and such more, right? But product managers are not as much as technically skilled, you can say, compared to the developers. That's why it is also said to write the quality code so it can be explained to them in a flow.
Okay. And here I have another question. Like when you're doing functional stress like testing,
Mhm.
now is this like we should keep in mind to have all the function parameters independent of each other, right? Or else to find out the error will be very difficult, like if the parameters are linked.
So that depends actually upon your application and its functionality. If I take an example of, let's take an example of Instagram only. So basic Instagram is a social media app. You post something, you can edit it, you can delete it, right? We can do functional testing on each these three functionalities differently, but at the end we have to check if there is any parameter. We have to combine the parameters and check it once, make it a bundle kind of thing. So we'll post our image, we'll edit its caption. Once the edit is done, we will delete it. A simple combination of a uh, combined testing. So after independent testing is done, we'll check how they are interacting with others, whether they are interacting the way we want them or not.
So basically this work is mainly done by product managing managers, like this testing part of
No,
the
no, no.
software.
This is done by the combination of mostly developers or the quality assurance engineer. Product managers chimes in because they need to have a basic idea of what about their product, the codes, as they have to make accordingly the programs, the launches, the update releases, and such more.
Okay, thank you. Last question. I would like to know more about black box testing actually and how it's done.
So black box testing, if that's fine, I'll cover it at the end after the session because it's
Yeah, yeah,
completely
obviously, obviously.
full. So let's move on to the Kepler part, right? So Kepler is an E2E testing platform which captures and mocks your data from the API calls that you have made. Now you can make API calls if you have, everyone must have used Postman at certain point of time, right? So when you make a Postman request to an API, you provide it with some data or anything else if you're making a post request. So Kepler captures those requests, converts them to test cases by mocking the body that you have provided. And if it's a GET request, what it does is it records everything that you have got from the call and stores it in the database. Similarly, with the actual request and response that you are making to an API or then application, it captures it and slowly by slowly it replaces them. At the end, you can actually compare what your data was at the start and what it is at the end. So when you write your test cases, it becomes easier because if the database is live, the data is about to change continuously, and whatever test you are making at the 1 p.m. may pass, but at the 2 p.m. it may not. That's why a static database is required. So that's how the Kepler does it. It mocks the database from the API calls, stores it in its own MongoDB, and then you can mock, write, generate, and generate test cases from it directly. So this comes handy when you are integrating it with some third-party application. For example, you have a database, you have an application that is working with the combination of Twilio and MongoDB, right? So every time you write the test cases manually in the file, you would require to access those API keys, those dependencies. But here, the dependency is already mocked. So do not require to use those API keys again and again. Once your test case is ready, you can generally just replay it and similarly make more API calls from those. Enrich your test cases. That's a bit clear.
Yeah, I got some idea of it. Only after using it, I will get a much more clear idea, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, yes, I can understand.
Awesome. So now Anvit will take over and explain you about the Keploy API fellowship part.
So hi everyone. So let me tell you about the Deploy API Fellowship Program. So becoming a fellow in Deploy API Fellowship, there are 3 points you need to know. Like what are the 3 points that you will learn and teach and things like that. So the first point is learning. So like students will get training from the Deploy team about like all about the APIs, how to create and use APIs in your projects, and how to test APIs using different tools. So the perks are like there will be exclusive T-shirts, certificates, and future opportunities by Kipler. Right. Talking about the second point, so the teaching process. So the students will be trained. They will be taking sessions in their respective colleges and communities, and they will be spreading awareness about the APIs and deploy. Also, the perks are like the swag kit from Kiploy and access to Kiploy meetings. So let me tell you about the Kiploy meetups. Like they are really fun, and we need like what to tell. Like we get a lot of things to learn, like new things. So that are really good. And also about the growth. So that's the third point. The Kiploy team will help the Kiploy API fellows to create their own community in their college if they wish to, and they'll get mentorship and support from Kiploy. So that was it. Anmesh, you will be telling about the giveaway.
Yeah, I'll be telling it with the giveaway. So we have a giveaway planned as I said at the starting. Here are the 3 steps. I'll share the steps with you. So first step is most crucial because we'll be going through in an order. Specifically, first we'll choose from the star users or the folks who have star mark the repository. Then we'll go to the API fellowship part, folks who have applied for the API fellowship, and at the third, we'll check the social media posts. So let me show you of how the star gazes would look like. So once you have star mark your repo, you can see yourself among these folks. So we'll be selecting one of you from here, right? And if you have not taken the session, screenshot of the session in between will actually go back a few slides. You can take the session screenshot and then post it on. The complete deadline of the giveaway is valid only till the session, so it's actually 1 hour. It's 12:30 right now. The giveaway participation will end by 1 o'clock. So let me go back a few slides. And if you have not taken the screenshot, you can actually take it. Right. Awesome. In meanwhile, if you have any more questions, let us know regarding the API fellowship, Keploy, or anything else.
Uh,
We have to post by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, you can complete the whole 3 steps by 1 o'clock.
Okay. And what do you have to exactly post? Like we attended the session, right? And what
Then
we learned? Like what do you have to exactly post? Like we just attended the session and
it can be anything that you got to learn something
okay.
about the session or just in general, whatever you want to.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So coming to the black box testing, uh, it's very simple kind of thing. If you dive into the testing part or more, there are different kinds of testing. Black box testing is a bit different because in this you do not know about the software, right? You have input, you receive an output, and then you do the complete testing. So when you go into the just a testing part, there are two different kinds of testing that bifurcates it. One is TDD and other one is PDD. So depending upon those, there are various types of testing under types of subcategories even under them. That's a bit overview of black box testing.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome then. So I guess we can wrap it up, Neeraj and with.
Yeah, I guess time to wrap.
yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Okay, guys. Thank you for the session.
Priya, I had one question.
Yeah.
In the second step, you have written join for the KPI fellowship. How to exactly do that thing? Means I have found a Google form.
Yeah, you have to just fill the Google form.
Okay, Priya. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you folks for joining in.
And also, can you share your LinkedIn in the chat box, like so that people can connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. If you have any questions after the session or at any point of time you want to connect with regarding something, you can connect with me on my LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah, and one more question, like while posting on social media, uh, who should we tag? Keploy or you?
Kepler.
Keploy, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.